Runaway bride meets death on the rails. A nameless hero changes everything. Lyra ran as if the night itself was chasing her. Behind her, the lights of Red Mesa Station blurred into long, shaking lines. The air smelled like hot metal and dust, the kind of dust that never fully settled on this planet. Every breath scratched her throat, but she did not slow down. She could not. She kept one hand on the small bag pressed to her side. Inside were a few clothes, a faded family photo, and a thin data card she did not fully understand. She had grabbed it in panic from her father's safe before leaving. He had said, "If anything ever happens, take this and run." She had never believed she would need to. Tonight proved she had been wrong. The wedding had been an hour ago. The music, the bright ribbons, the smiling guests, none of it had felt real. It had all been a show built for one man. Darius Cade, the mining lord who owned the biggest ore fields and the longest stretch of rail on the frontier. He had stood tall in his expensive coat, shining boots, and clean gloves. Like dirt and struggle were things other people were born for. When he looked at Lyra, his smile was polite. His eyes were not. Those eyes had been the final push. The moment his hand closed over her wrist, warm and firm, she had felt it. Not love, not care, ownership. She had smiled because everyone was watching. She had walked beside him because people expected her to. Then, when the crowd turned toward the minister, she had moved. One step, then two. Then she was gone, slipping behind a curtain and into the service hall, heart pounding so hard it felt louder than the music. Her wedding dress had caught on a crate, tearing at the hem. She had not stopped to fix it. She had not stopped to cry. She had not even stopped to think. Now she was running toward the rails, toward the dark edge of town where the colony's glow ended and the frontier began. A warning siren echoed behind her, not the big emergency one, but a sharp private signal. A station alert. She knew that sound. They had discovered she was missing. Her boots skidded on loose gravel as she reached the rail yard. The tracks cut across the land like a scar, two dark lines stretching into emptiness. Above, the sky was wide and crowded with stars. Below, the ground was hard and cold. Somewhere far away, an engine horn sounded, low and deep, like a beast calling out in the dark. A train was coming. That should have been good news. A train meant movement, escape, distance. If she could get on it, maybe she could disappear into the next settlement, then the next, until Darius Cade's reach could not find her. But the rail yard was not safe. It was open, flat, easy to see. She hurried along the edge of the track, looking for a ladder on one of the parked cargo cars. Most of them were locked, sealed for delivery. She found a service catwalk and climbed it, hands shaking. The metal was wet with condensation, slick and cold. Another horn sounded, closer. Lights appeared at the far end of the canyon corridor. Two bright beams grew larger by the second, cutting through the darkness. The approaching train was not slowing. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had thought it would be a local freight. This was different, faster, heavier. The kind that did not stop in small places unless the schedule demanded it. She stepped back from the edge, but her heel caught on a loose bolt. Her ankle twisted. A burst of pain shot up her leg, and she stumbled down off the catwalk. Her bag hit the ground first. Then gravel bit into her palms. Her torn dress tangled around her knees. She tried to push up, but her ankle screamed again and refused to hold her weight. The train's lights swallowed the world. Wind began to rise as the engine neared, the air pushing forward like a wall. The tracks hummed. The sound was too big, too fast, too close. Lyra froze. In that moment, she was no longer a runaway bride. She was simply a person who had misjudged a machine that did not care. The horn blasted again, so loud it shook her bones. She reached for the edge of the track, thinking she could roll away, but her hands slipped. The gravel moved under her like tiny marbles. Her throat tightened. No scream came out, only a breath of pure fear. A shadow moved behind her. A hand grabbed her arm, firm and sudden. She felt herself lifted, not gently, but with a strength that did not hesitate. Someone pulled her backward, away from the rails, just as the train thundered through the yard. The wind slammed into them. Dust and loose paper whipped across the ground. Lyra fell onto her side, dragged a few feet. The world became noise and vibration. Metal wheels hammered the track. Sparks flew where the rails met uneven joints. The engine roared past like a storm made of steel. Then it was gone. The tail-end lights shrank into the distance, and the yard grew quiet again, except for the fading echo and Lyra's ragged breathing. She lay still, shaking, staring at the stars that seemed too calm for what had almost happened. A voice spoke above her, low and steady. Tracks don't forgive mistakes. Lyra turned her head and saw the man who had pulled her away. He was crouched beside her, checking her arm like a mechanic inspecting a machine. He looked to be in his early 30s, maybe older, with a face shaped by sun and wind. His coat was worn, dusty, and patched at the elbows. A scarf covered part of his neck. His gloves were plain leather, not fancy, not new. His eyes were the strangest thing about him. They were calm, but not empty, calm like someone who had learned to keep fear inside. Lyra swallowed hard, her voice came out small. You saved me." He didn't smile. "You were about to become a very sad story." She pushed herself upright with a wince. Her ankles still hurt, but she could sit. "Who are you?" He stood, and she noticed he carried no visible badge, no company symbol, no station ID. Most men on the rail lines had some kind of marking. This one had nothing. "Just passing through," he said. "That's not a name." He paused, as if choosing between truth and convenience. "Ash," Lyra frowned. "Ash like the dust." "Like what's left after the fire," he replied. She didn't know what to say to that. Her hands trembled as she reached for her bag. It had spilled open, the photo half out, the data card still inside. She quickly pushed everything back in. Ash watched her for a second, then looked past her toward the station lights in the distance. His head tilted slightly like he was listening. Lyra followed his gaze. At first she heard nothing, then a faint hum, not a train. Something smaller, faster, engines. Her heart jumped again. "They're coming." Ash's jaw tightened. "Yeah," Lyra's mind raced. "Please," she said, forcing the words out. "I don't know where to go if they find me." He cut her off with a raised hand, not rude, just focused. "Stand up. My ankle. Can you put weight on it?" She tested it, biting her lip. Pain flared, but she could manage, barely. "Yes, but slow." Ash nodded once, like he had already planned for that. He walked to a nearby stack of old rail crates and pulled a tarp loose. Under it was a small hoverbike, old model, scratched paint with dust on the engine vents. Lyra blinked. "You have a bike." Ash swung a leg over it, checking the power cell. "I don't walk long distances if I can help it." The hum grew louder. Lights flashed at the edge of the yard. 2 bikes, maybe 3, moving in a sweeping pattern like hunters searching for a scent. Lyra's throat went dry. "Those are Cade's riders." Ash didn't look impressed. "Yeah, that's what they look like." He tossed her a small helmet from a side pouch. "Put it on." She hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" Ash looked at her then, really looked like he was measuring her fear against something deeper. "Because you ran," he said. "Most people don't." That wasn't an answer, but it was something. Lyra put the helmet on with shaking hands and climbed onto the back of the hoverbike. Ash adjusted something on the console, and the engine made a quiet, controlled whine. Before he accelerated, he said, "Hold tight. Don't lean the wrong way." No time." He shot forward. The hoverbike glided low over the gravel, fast but smooth. Lyra clutched the back of his coat. Wind hit her face, cold and sharp. The rail yard fell behind them, replaced by open desert and jagged rocks. One of the hunter bikes spotted them. A bright beam swept across the ground. A voice crackled through a loudspeaker behind them. "Stop! Return the woman and you will be paid." Lyra's stomach turned. Ash didn't respond. He leaned the bike sharply into a narrow path between stone ridges, where larger vehicles couldn't follow easily. The trail dropped and twisted, hugging the canyon wall. The hunters chased anyway. Their engines screamed as they forced their way into the tighter route. Lyra pressed her forehead against Ash's back, trying not to look down. Ash kept his focus forward. He moved like he knew this land, like the rocks were old friends and the shadows were warnings he understood. Ahead, a dark shape appeared, an abandoned station building, half buried in sand, its old signal tower bent like a broken arm. Ash aimed for it. They slid behind the structure, using it as cover. He cut the engine at the last moment, and the sudden quiet felt unreal. Lyra's ears rang. Ash pulled her off the bike carefully, supporting her when her ankles shook. They crouched behind a rusted metal wall. The hunters passed on the trail above, their lights sweeping over the canyon but missing the hidden space below. Lyra held her breath until the hum faded. When it was quiet again, she whispered, "They'll keep looking." Ash nodded. "Yeah." He glanced at her bag, then at her face. "You got something they want besides you?" Lyra swallowed, thinking of the data card. I don't know." Ash's eyes narrowed slightly, not suspicious, more concerned. "You should figure it out." Lyra stared at the dark station, at the broken tower, at the endless frontier beyond. Her whole life had just split in two. Behind her, the rail lines stretched away into the night, and somewhere in the distance another train horn sounded, like a warning or maybe a promise. Ash said quietly, "If you stay on these rails, you need a plan, and you need to move before sunrise." Lyra nodded, fear still inside her, but something else too, hope, because for the first time tonight she wasn't alone, and the nameless hero beside her was clearly not just a passing traveler. He was someone the frontier had shaped into a weapon and a shield. Part 1 ends here. Broken windows stared into the desert, and faded signs hung crooked on rusted bolts. Once, trains had stopped here every day. Now only wind and sand passed through. Lyra sat near a small fire Ash had built using dry brush and a portable heat coil. She held a metal cup in both hands, letting the warmth reach her fingers. Her ankles still hurt, but Ash had wrapped it carefully with a strip of cloth from his pack. He had worked quietly without asking questions. That made her nervous and safe at the same time. Ash stood a few steps away, scanning the horizon through a small handheld scope. He moved slowly, like someone trained to notice everything. Even when still, he felt alert. Lyra watched him. He was not like the men from Red Mesa. He didn't wear expensive clothes or carry himself with pride. There was no show in him. Every movement was simple and practical. After a while, he lowered the scope. "No riders," he said. Lyra released a breath she didn't know she was holding. "They'll come back," she said softly. "Probably," Ash answered. "But not right away. They lost the trail in the canyon." He walked over and sat on an old rail crate across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable, just heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Lyra broke it. "Why did you help me?" Ash shrugged slightly. "You were in danger. That's not enough reason for most people." He looked into the fire. "Maybe I'm not most people." She studied him carefully. His face carried small scars, faint lines around his eyes, and a tiredness that came from years, not from one bad night. "You're not just a traveler," she said. He didn't deny it. Lyra hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out the small data card. It was thin and silver, almost weightless. "My father told me to take this if something went wrong," she said. "I don't know what's on it." Ash's eyes flicked toward the card. He didn't reach for it. "Data like that usually means trouble," he said. "I think that's why they're chasing me." Ash nodded slowly. "Makes sense." She expected him to ask to see it. He didn't. Instead, he said, "You should eat something." He handed her a small ration bar. She accepted it, surprised again by how he avoided pushing her. After eating, Lyra stood carefully and tested her ankle. It still hurt but held her weight. Ash watched closely, ready to catch her if she fell, but she stayed upright. "I can walk," she said. "Good," he replied. "We need to move before midday heat." "Where are we going?" He pointed toward the distant hills. "Old rail hub hidden, not on modern maps." "Why there?" "Safe for now." Lyra nodded, trusting him more than she expected. They packed quickly. Ash covered their tracks using a small device that scattered dust in a wide pattern, confusing anyone trying to follow. Lyra noticed how natural these actions seemed to him. Survival was second nature. As they started walking, she asked, "Have you always lived like this?" "Not always." "What changed?" Ash was silent for several steps. Finally, he said, "I used to protect the rail lines." "A guard, something like that." She waited, hoping he would continue. "I believed the companies kept order," he said slowly. "Then I saw what that order cost." He didn't explain further, but Lyra understood enough. The frontier was full of stories about people who served systems until they realized those systems hurt innocent lives. They walked for hours through rocky paths and dry grass. Ash taught her how to place her feet quietly and how to use shadows for cover. The lessons distracted her from fear. At midday, they stopped near a narrow canyon stream. While Ash checked their surroundings, Lyra sat on a rock and watched the water flow. She felt different. Last night she had been a runaway bride, lost and terrified. Now she felt like someone learning how to survive. The sound of engines broke the quiet. Ash froze. Lyra's heart jumped. "Hunters? Maybe." He pulled her behind a cluster of rocks. Two hoverbikes appeared in the distance, scanning slowly. Ash whispered, "Stay low." Lyra pressed herself against the stone, barely breathing. The riders passed close enough that she saw their armor and the symbol of Cade Industries on their shoulders. One rider spoke into a communicator. "Trail lost. Continue search grid." Ash waited until they disappeared before moving again. "They won't stop," Lyra said quietly. "No," Ash agreed, "but neither will we." As evening approached, they reached a high ridge overlooking an old rail hub. Rusted tracks crossed each other like tangled lines. Broken cargo containers stood scattered across the area. Despite its abandoned appearance, Ash's eyes softened slightly when he saw it. "You know this place?" Lyra said. "Yes." They descended carefully. Ash opened a hidden door built into a rock wall. Inside was a small workshop filled with tools, spare parts, and old rail equipment. Lyra stared in surprise. "You built this?" "Years ago." He powered on a small generator and soft light filled the space. For the first time since meeting him, Lyra saw a different side of Ash. This was not just a hiding spot. It was a place he had once called home. She walked slowly around the room, touching the metal surfaces. "You could have stayed here," she said. "I didn't want to stay anywhere," he answered. "Why?" He paused before replying. "Because staying means losing people when they leave." The words hung between them. Lyra felt a quiet understanding grow. Both of them had run from something, different reasons, same fear. She sat at a small table and looked again at the data card. "Can we check what's on this?" Ash nodded. He connected it to an old terminal. The screen flickered, then displayed files filled with contracts, maps, and legal records. Lyra leaned closer. "These are rail agreements," she whispered. Ash's expression changed as he scanned them. "Not just agreements," he said. "Control routes." "What does that mean?" "It means your marriage wasn't just personal," he said. "It was business. With this, Cade could control key supply lines." Lyra's stomach tightened. She had suspected it, but seeing proof made it real. "That's why he won't let me go," she said. Ash nodded. Outside, wind moved across the rail yard like a warning. Lyra looked at him. "What do we do now?" Ash leaned back in his chair, thinking carefully. "For now, we rest," he said. "Tomorrow we decide how to use this." She felt relief at hearing "we." Night settled over the hub. They shared a quiet meal, and for the first time in days, Lyra felt safe enough to sleep. Before closing her eyes, she watched Ash sitting near the doorway, cleaning a tool and listening to the sounds of the desert. He looked like someone who carried many stories but spoke only when necessary. And slowly, she realized something. He might call himself just passing through, but he had chosen to stay. And that meant everything was already changing. The night around the old rail hub felt different. It was quiet but not peaceful. The wind moved through broken structures with a low whistle, like voices speaking from another time. The metal walls clicked and shifted as temperatures dropped, reminding Lyra that this place had lived a long life before being forgotten. Inside the hidden workshop, a soft light glowed from the old terminal. The files from the data card remained open on the screen. Ash stood in front of it, studying the maps again. Lyra woke slowly, blinking against the dim light. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory returned. The runaway wedding, the chase, the rails, and the quiet man who had saved her. She sat up, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "You didn't sleep," she said. Ash didn't turn. "Later." She walked closer and looked at the screen. Lines of routes crossed the map like veins. Some were marked in red. "What are you seeing?" she asked. "These routes," Ash said quietly. "If Cade controls them, he controls supply between 3 colonies. Food, water, filters, medicine, everything." Lyra felt cold inside. "And my marriage would have given him that?" "Yes," she swallowed. For years she had been told her marriage was important for unity between families. Now she understood the real reason. "I was never the point," she said softly. "Just the key." Ash didn't respond, but his silence felt like agreement. Outside, a faint sound reached them, distant engines. Ash moved instantly. He shut off the terminal and signaled for Lyra to stay quiet. They stepped toward the doorway and listened. The engines grew louder. "More riders," Lyra whispered. "Different," Ash said. They climbed a narrow ladder to a lookout platform hidden above the hub. From there they could see across the open land. 3 large vehicles approached slowly, heavy and armored, moving in formation. Lyra's breath caught. "That's not a search team." "No," Ash said. His voice grew harder. "That's enforcement." Spotlights swept across the ground like searching eyes. "They found us," Lyra said. "Not yet," Ash corrected. "They're scanning." He studied their pattern carefully. The vehicles spread out, blocking escape routes. Whoever led them understood strategy. "Your fiancé is getting serious," Ash said. Lyra felt fear rise again, but she forced herself to stay calm. Running blindly had almost killed her once already. "What do we do?" Ash thought for a long moment. "Running won't work forever," he said. "We need leverage." She looked at the data card still in her hand. "This, maybe." They climbed down quietly. Ash opened a storage cabinet filled with old rail equipment, signal transmitters, repair tools, and small drones. You built this place for defense, Lyra said. Yes. Why? He paused before answering. Because once I believed the rail lines should protect people, not control them. She sensed there was more behind those words, but now was not the time to ask. Ash activated a small drone and sent it toward the approaching vehicles. The screen displayed their movements from above. They're setting up a perimeter, he said. Smart. Lyra watched the feed. One vehicle stopped near the outer track. A tall figure stepped out, confident, slow, surrounded by guards. Even from a distance, she recognized the posture. Cade, she whispered. Ash glanced at her. You sure? Yes. Her chest tightened. Seeing him here made everything real again. He had come personally. That meant he would not leave without her. A loudspeaker crackled across the desert. Lyra, Cade's voice echoed calmly. There is no need to hide. Come out and we can resolve this peacefully. His tone sounded gentle, but she knew better. Ash muted the audio. You don't have to answer, he said. Lyra shook her head slowly. If I keep running, he'll keep chasing. People could get hurt. Ash studied her face. You're not responsible for his choices. I know, she said, but I need to face him. Ash didn't argue, but his eyes showed concern. Not alone, he said. They stepped outside together, walking slowly toward the open rail yard. The spotlight found them immediately, flooding the ground with white light. The guards raised their weapons, but did not fire. Cade stepped forward, his coat clean despite the dust, his smile controlled. Lyra, he said warmly, you've caused quite a disturbance. She stood straight despite her fear. I'm not coming back. His smile faded slightly. You misunderstand. The agreement between us benefits everyone. It benefits you, she replied. Ash remained slightly behind her, silent but ready. Cade's gaze moved to him. And who is this? He asked. A friend, Lyra said. Cade laughed softly. You have poor taste in allies. Ash didn't react. Cade continued, you belong with me. The contract is legal. You cannot escape it. Lyra held up the data card. I know what's on this. For the first time, Cade's calm expression shifted. These roots, she said louder. You plan to control entire colonies through me. Silence filled the air. Ash watched closely, reading every movement. Cade's smile returned, thinner now. Business arrangements are complex. You would have lived comfortably. I would have been a tool, she said. He stepped closer. You are overreacting. Ash finally spoke. She said no. The simple words carried weight. Cade's eyes hardened. This does not concern you. It does now, Ash replied calmly. The guards shifted nervously, sensing tension. Lyra felt strength rise inside her. She was no longer the girl running blindly in fear. I choose my own life, she said firmly. Cade studied her for a long moment, calculating. Then he smiled again, cold this time. Very well, he said. If you will not return willingly, we will handle this differently. The guards moved forward. Ash's hand tightened slightly, but he didn't reach for a weapon. Instead, he tapped a small device on his wrist. Around the rail yard, old signal towers activated. Lights flashed and warning alarms echoed. Hidden barriers rose from the ground, blocking the vehicles. Cade looked around in surprise. You're standing in a rail hub designed by me, Ash said quietly. I know every switch. The guards hesitated. Ash continued, calm but firm. No one needs to get hurt. Leave. For a moment, it felt like time stopped. Then Cade laughed softly. This isn't over, he said. You cannot hide forever. He signaled his team. Slowly, the vehicles began to retreat, pulling back beyond the barriers. Lyra watched until they disappeared into the distance. Her legs felt weak, but she stayed standing. Ash deactivated the defenses. You did well, he said. She exhaled slowly. I was terrified. That's normal. They stood together in the fading light, knowing this victory was only temporary, because Cade would return. And next time, he would not underestimate them. The rail hub felt quieter after Cade's vehicles disappeared into the distance. But it was not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the waiting kind, the kind that sat heavy in the air, like a storm preparing to return. Lyra stood beside Ash, watching the horizon long after the dust settled. Her heart still beat fast from the confrontation. She had faced Cade directly for the first time without fear controlling her, yet she knew it was not finished. He'll come back, she said softly. Ash nodded. Yes. He didn't say it with worry or anger, just certainty. They returned inside the workshop. Ash powered down the defensive systems and began checking supplies. His movements were steady, but Lyra noticed something new. He wasn't just preparing to hide anymore. He was planning. Lyra sat at the table, holding the data card again. This is the only thing stopping him, she said. Ash looked at her. It's more than that, it's proof. Proof of what? That he doesn't just want power, Ash said. He's breaking rules to get it. She thought about the contracts and hidden clauses they had seen. Entire rail routes could fall under one man's control if the agreement went through. And if we release it, she asked. Ash nodded slowly. Then he loses leverage, but he'll be angry. He already is. Lyra almost smiled at that. For the first time since running away, she felt like she had a choice instead of being trapped. "What's the plan?" she asked. Ash hesitated before answering. "There's an old broadcast tower near the main line. If we send the files through the public network, every colony will see them, and he won't be able to hide it." "Exactly." Lyra stood, determination replacing fear. "Then we do it." They packed quickly. Ash loaded tools and equipment onto the hoverbike while Lyra secured the data card inside a small case. Before leaving, she looked around the workshop, the hidden space that had protected them. It felt strange to leave something that had begun to feel safe. Ash noticed her expression. "We can come back," he said. She nodded, feeling warmth in his words. The ride toward the broadcast tower took them across wide desert plains. The sky burned orange with sunset colors and long shadows stretched across the sand. Lyra held tightly to Ash as the hoverbike moved fast over uneven ground. "You really built all those defenses?" she asked over the wind. "Years ago," he replied. "You must have been important." He didn't answer right away. "I used to believe systems could protect people," he said finally. "Then I learned systems can also hurt them." Lyra understood. She had learned something similar about power and control. The tower appeared ahead, tall, thin, and slightly leaning, but still standing. Old signal lights blinked weakly along its sides. Ash stopped near the base. "This is it," he said. Inside, dust covered most surfaces, but the equipment still worked. Ash connected the data card to the main terminal. The screen flickered, loading slowly. Lyra felt her hands tremble. "Once we send this," she said, "there's no going back." Ash looked at her carefully. "Are you sure?" She took a deep breath. "Yes," he pressed the command. Lines of data began uploading, spreading across the frontier network. Outside, engines roared. Lyra's heart jumped. "Already?" Ash looked through the cracked window. Cade's vehicles returned, faster this time, moving directly toward the tower. "He tracked us," Ash said. Fear tried to rise again, but Lyra forced herself to stay calm. "How long until the upload finishes?" she asked. 2 minutes. The vehicles surrounded the tower quickly. Guards stepped out, forming a line. Cade walked forward, confident as ever. "Impressive," he called out, "but pointless." Ash stepped beside Lyra. "We just need time," he said quietly. The door shook as guards tried to force it open. The upload bar moved slowly, 30%, 50, 70. Cade's voice came through the loudspeaker. "You don't understand," he said calmly. "This could have been easy." Lyra stepped closer to the window. "Easy for you," she replied. His expression hardened. The door finally broke open, guards rushing inside. Ash moved forward, not attacking but blocking their path, using obstacles and timing to slow them without violence. 90%. Lyra watched the screen, heart pounding. One guard reached toward the terminal. Ash redirected him gently but firmly, pushing him away from the console. 95%. Cade stepped inside, his presence filling the room. "Enough," he said. Lyra turned to face him. "No," she answered. The upload reached 100%. The terminal beeped. "Transmission complete." A long silence followed. Ash stepped back slightly, lowering his stance. Cade stared at the screen, realizing what had happened. His control slipped for the first time. "You think this changes anything?" he said coldly. "Yes," Lyra replied. "Now everyone knows." Outside, communication signals began lighting up across the horizon as other stations received the data. Cade looked around slowly, understanding that public exposure meant his power would weaken. Finally, he turned toward the door. "This isn't over," he said quietly, but his voice no longer sounded certain. He left with his guards, the vehicles retreating into the distance. Lyra exhaled deeply, feeling tension leave her body like a heavy weight finally lifted. Ash walked to the window beside her. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. They stood there for a long time, watching the desert grow calm again. "What happens now?" she asked. Ash looked toward the horizon. "That depends on you," Lyra thought carefully. "I don't want to run anymore," she said. "I want to build something." Ash nodded slowly. "Then we start here," he said. Together they returned to the old rail hub. Over the next weeks, they repaired broken tracks and reopened the station as a safe stop for travelers. Word spread about a place where anyone could rest without fear. People began calling the station the second chance. Some spoke about the runaway bride who chose her own path. Others told stories about the nameless man who protected the rails. Ash never corrected them. He didn't need a title, because sometimes the greatest heroes were not the ones with names written in history, but the ones who changed lives quietly, one choice at a time. And under the endless frontier sky, Lyra and Ash watched new trains arrive, carrying strangers who might one day become family. The rails no longer felt like chains. They felt like freedom.